SoCalQOL. It is Saturday. Happy Saturday. And we are here. Saturday night. Another late night for the podcast. And I'm going to keep apologizing because it's not my intent. But hopefully, we're going to get our shit together by Monday and have a podcast at 6 a.m. That way, you guys don't have to worry about waiting at the end of the day because your Saturday podcast might end up being your Sunday podcast because not a lot of people hop on your podcast at 10 o'clock at night. So, anyways, and excited because I'm always excited, but more so excited because today I had a crazy and essentially I was exporting a video on my phone because I do all my videos, other than the live streaming ones on my phone. So if there's any video that you see that's got an intro, outro, overdubs of any kind, or the audio quality is a lot better, kind of basically sounding like a podcast, but on the video. A lot of times I've just done it on my phone and I export it via my phone. But sometimes a video can be 30 minutes, 60 minutes, even 2 hours long. And as far as the length of time that it took place, but that doesn't mean it only takes an hour or 2 hours to process. It literally takes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It takes a long time to process the videos, especially on my phone. So a lot of times I'll export videos at night. That way, when I wake up in the morning, it's done. You might be asking me why I do this. We can get into it later. But let's just say I like being mobile. I like having the ability to do everything from where I am, wherever I'm at, versus having to go to a quote unquote studio or video production area or whatever. If I can just do it on my phone, I'd rather do that, at least right now, at where I'm at in the SoCalQOL business model. So that was a long, drawn out story just to tell you guys that as I was walking and exporting, I do this thing where I'll swipe down from my iPhone, and I'll be able to play like a podcast, and I'll be able to listen to something, at least the podcast, while I'm exporting a video. So the video is still exporting. I can see the screen because you can't basically get out of it, otherwise it'll stop exporting. So I'm listening to none other than Gary V, and it's I'm only halfway through it, but it's a 4 hour like Super Bowl podcast that he did. Pretty much 4 hours of his day that he recorded and filmed and all that good stuff. So I'm listening to it, and he's dropping a whole crap load of knowledge, right? He's doing what he usually does, but he came to a section in his podcast where he started talking. I believe it was about it almost had nothing to do with empathy, really, but I mean he does emphasize empathy a good amount. So long story short is, for whatever reason, from whatever he was talking about and the way he put it, it really resonated with me about people that I've essentially cut out of my life, because there's a handful of people. I probably can't count them on more than two hands, but I basically decided that, it's better for me just to not be in their life, for my own sake, but for their sake too. Because if you're like me, I have a certain personality, especially in a place where I've been asked to contribute something or to take care of something or to do something my own way, because either I'm being paid to do it or I've been entrusted to do it in a certain place or whatever. And so when that happens, my perspective changes in a way that, when it comes to spiritual wellness, I have crazy standards. If you can't meet my crazy standards, odds are you're probably not going to be asked to do whatever it is that I'm doing, and or be a part of it at least. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't like it when, and I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong. I'm not saying I'm not, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying I'm right and they're wrong. And I'm not saying that they're right and I'm wrong. all I'm saying is there's a big difference in opinion and how something would be done. And so, long story short is in the course of the last, 10, 15 years that I've been, going in and out of careers and businesses and jobs and gigs, I essentially had to kind of cut ties with certain amount of people, and I hope they're doing well. I hope that they feel like they got something out of, my presence in their life and I was a good influence at some point in time. But a lot of them, I could imagine they might not ever want to speak to me, not because I said something that was just horrific, but just about, sometimes the way in which you, especially with relationships, never a good way to communicate. Like, for example, you're fired. There's no good way to communicate that to someone because it's a negative thing regardless of how you look at it. So, coming from that context, like I said, I have a handful of people in my life that I've cut out because of certain reasons that mostly had to do with the spiritual wellness side, the morals, the ethics, the values, and just the standards that I would expect to be kept a certain way weren't being kept that way. And it's unfortunate that that kind of a thing for me at least is huge, is something that I hold very dear to my heart. And it almost, like how some people say, like, oh, it's not personal, it's just business. When it comes to spiritual wellness, it's all personal to me. So it's hard for me to take myself out of that mentality that I usually have and just think of it as business. Just think of it as like, hey, this is just the way it's going to work because either that's the way it's been done or in this situation it's the best way to handle what happened or who you're dealing with, whatever. I'll try to give some examples that way it's not so vague. That way you guys can have some practicality to this. Obviously we're talking about empathy. What does empathy mean in social wellness? So I've got my little handy dandy dictionary, and empathy as a noun is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. So some synonyms are affinity with, sympathy with, ending of, sensitivity toward, sensibility to, identification with, awareness of, fellowship with, fellow feeling for, like togetherness, closeness to, and that's it. um, and then I also have, well, before I get into this other section of reading, so yeah, like didn't surprise me after I read the dictionary, or after I read the definition of empathy. Wasn't super surprised to hear what I heard. It makes sense, and for whatever reason, as I was reading that, I made me think of um, crap. Now I just forgot what it's called. Uh, Emotional intelligence, and I don't necessarily know how this would tie into just empathy in general, but um, maybe emotional intelligence kind of fits into this. So if you're used to talking about that, maybe this is a part of emotional intelligence. But when I think of having empathy, and it's strictly for the people that I just mentioned, the people that I really don't ever plan on seeing again or communicating with or having a relationship around even. My best practice was to take myself out of the situation. That way they didn't have to do anything, you know, not like they had to do anything anyways, but my best practice as being a human being on this earth is, if I can't control myself around a certain place or a certain group of people, or it's my responsibility to do something about it on my end, regardless of their intentions or their responsibilities, or however I see that they should be running whatever they're doing. Um, there's there's been a normal all or nothing type of attitude that I'll have. So I'll take myself out of this work. That doesn't as far as the definition goes, that doesn't uh give you the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. So as I thought about that, and if, for example, if I wasn't able to take myself out of a situation, whether it be a workplace environment because I had to work there, whether it's a family member, obviously there, maybe it's just life, maybe just in the presence of not in the presence in the packing yourself with, there's just no way around getting out of this person's surroundings and having some type of interaction with this person. So, what do you do in that situation? Is kind of where I'm going. Like I said, my normal instinct was to just all or nothing. I'm just not going to go around there. I'll quit my job. I'll forget that I was even there, and I'll learn from my mistakes. But like I said, if you're not able to do that, you do basically have to come to terms with the empathy side of relationships. And so when I think about the bosses that I had that I didn't agree with, maybe I did at first, but after time went on, things changed, which will happen. Everyone's um, allowed to have their own life and adjust their life accordingly depending on what happens in their life and at their job or their business or whatever it is, organization. So when I sit back and go, okay, if I can't get out of this situation, I if there's a certain person, especially a leader in the place I'm at that I don't agree with, what's my best practice? And it's going to have to be empathy. It's going to have to be like, okay, if I'm in that person's shoes, if I'm if I have a business that's, my bread and butter, it's how I make my living, it's, yes, I hire people and yes, I'm going to lead them, but it's more so I'm employing them to do a task, and that's really all that I'm technically mandatory, or that's technically the only thing that's mandatory in my relationship with that person, with that employee, is to employ them and make sure they do their job. So if I have a problem, another employee, and that other employee is essentially doing the job at hand, but this other person, let's say it's me, this other person named Scott is doing a job and doing it however they feel fit, or I approve of the way they're doing it, but they have a problem with that other employee who's technically doing what I'm asking, but Scott says they're not. What's my take on that? And now Scott's talking to me, the employer, like almost like change this. Otherwise, this isn't going to make sense, or long term it's not going to work out, or whatever. And I could sit back and go, okay, well, Scott, that's not your concern. That's not why you're here. You're not here to dictate what I, the employer, does with my business. And so obviously, if I'm that employer, I might just say, you know what, everything's fine right now. You're the only one that's causing any issues with everyone getting their shit done. You know, yeah, either you can quit, or at some point, if I feel led to fire you, then I'll fire you, let you go, whatever the case. Um, and that's it. And that's kind of just how you have to look at it. Is that uh, I don't want to use the word right because I don't think it's not the right word. Um, is that the way you should always look at situations? No. As a human being, you do not have to always sit back and use that as the reasoning to just let everything slide and all that good stuff. But I think when it comes to, like, for example, social media. On social media, the place that everyone has an opinion, the place that anyone can basically comment, post, share, tweet, retweet, reply. I probably said that. DM, email, spam, all that stuff. There is no way that you, or what do we do? We have empathy. We see a person who talks shit about us, says really nasty things, really nasty comments. What do you do in that situation? The only thing you can do, because you got to coexist with it, is to show empathy. And you sit back, go, wow, this person's, tweeting at 3 in the morning about how my hair looks, or that I look fat in that shirt, or that I mispronounced tweet and I said twat, or what I just said, toot. Um, yeah, I have to feel sorry for them. I have to literally sit back and go, wow, they must be having a really crappy day. Or maybe they can't sleep, or maybe they got up too early. Whatever it is, I need to show empathy, because you know what? It's nothing's gonna change. Nothing's gonna change from that situation. As far as that boss goes, hey, if I'm going to stay at that job, and the leaders, not going to change their ways, and they're going to let whoever they want do whatever they want the way that they're going to do it, as long as they're doing their job, then I need to be okay with that. Otherwise, I need to quit. Or there's a blessing in disguise where they fire me anyways, and I have to go somewhere else. But if you have to stay in that situation, you have to show empathy. There's no way around it. Um, I'm going to go to this other section of reading. Basically, it says that there are 3 types of empathy that you need to strengthen your relationships with. And the first one is called cognitive empathy. And it says, when you hear the phrase, try to walk a mile in the other person's shoes, you're discussing cognitive empathy. And this is by a gentleman named Daniel Goleman, with a G. And Goleman says it's awareness, understanding someone else's perspective, which is a crucial part of maintaining a good connection and communication. Technically, it means I know what mental models you have. I know what language to use so you'll understand me, he explains. That's one complete set. So, cognitive empathy, as we're seeing it now, kind of is that is literally putting yourself in that person's shoes, saying, if I was this person making this amount of income, or having this type of business, and if I'm having this problem with my employees, what does that mean? It means that, as the employee who disagrees with everything, I need to show empathy if I'm going to stay there. I'm going to show cognitive empathy, because that's the only way you're going to survive. That's the only way you're going to be the type of person that you want to be in that situation: kind-hearted, self-aware, but also a good teacher, good leader, good mentor, and good employee. You got to be a good employee if you're going to work for somebody. Me, I'm not a good employee. Um, Other than my family-owned business, I'm not a good employee. Second type of empathy is called social empathy, which is great to hear because it's Social Wellness Day. Another set is the social side of empathy. That's sensing in yourself immediately what the other person is feeling. This is how you create rapport with another person. He adds, and you must be in tune with what's happening in order to do so. You're only going to have rapport if you pay full attention to the other person. You're going to have chemistry. So this, to me, socially, is more so like casual social empathy. So if someone gets hurt at a bar, or you see 2 people fighting out in public, um, or even, maybe it's a homeless person, maybe it's someone who's less fortunate than you, and you're just sitting back going, wow, like, I really just need to, like, let this person know that I can see them, that they exist, and that they're not alone. Um, And that kind of chemistry that you can build with someone naturally is really important because you know it's probably the easiest to ignore, but it's also the easiest to engage with. So it's like your first step, and it's a first step that you can actually pass up a lot, and you probably do pass up every day to talk to a homeless person or to console someone who's just gotten an argument in public. But empathetic concern. The third type is empathy. Oh, this third type of empathy is extremely important and equally underrated. It's called empathetic concern. If I have someone in my life who's in distress, I'm not just going to feel it, I'm going to want to help them. A parent's love for a child. If you have that love for someone, you're going to be there for them. So that's obviously way more blood. Some of the people that I've cut out of my life, I thought were in that realm, that I thought, were like blood relatives, or I always saw myself, having them in my life and me being in their life. But like I said, times change, and like situations that people go through, sometimes it's too hard for them to bear. And the only way that they can survive, so the other person can survive, the ones we need to be empathetic to, is is self-preservation, or job security, or just trying to get through it without wanting to hurt themselves in a fatal way. So with that being said, um, empathetic concern may have applied to someone that you might end up cutting out of your life, or not really being able to apply the cognitive empathy with, or even the social empathy with. And it's a sad thought. Like I said, if you can't get out of a situation, you really need to show empathy. It's just going to help you survive. It's going to take away a lot of your stress. It's going to take away negativity, and that's probably the card that you'll end up playing in a situation, is the empathy card. And luckily, there's a couple different versions that you can use that might help you even today. Maybe even today you had a really shitty day, and the person that you're fighting with, you need to apply one of these types of empathy with. And so that's exciting. It's exciting to learn from your mistakes and not put yourself in the same situation again, and do the same thing and expect a different result, because as we know, that's insanity. But yeah, guys, I hope this touches on some part of your life today. um, you know as social wellness keeps going on and on, I'm sure we're going to have more and more types of things like this. And obviously, I'm going to keep trying to get guests on, especially for social wellness, because like that's just, it's so relational, that I to show of social wellness that way. But in the meantime, hope you got something from this. I appreciate everyone. Please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. I've actually left the first one, so I'm I'm walking, talking the talk. So go ahead and comment on the iTunes podcast area. Really appreciate that. And we love you guys. We'll see you later. Take care and bye bye.